Hi my lovelies, welcome back to my channel, and for everybody who is new, I'm Leorah and I'm so glad you found me. So welcome to today's video, which is gonna be, I think, the 5th installment of my Infertility series. So again, my warning as always at the beginning of those kinds of videos, please don't watch this if you are triggered by stuff like this, okay? Please come back next time. And for everybody who wants to watch this, then hi. Okay, so we have come a long way already. This is the 5th installment. We are talking today about my 4th pregnancy. Is it? Yeah, it's the 4th pregnancy, which is the second to last one. And this is my second twin pregnancy. And this is actually also on a different kind of a level, a very, very hard time of my life, because this is also when my father died. And that in itself, it was crazy. So okay, again, this is very emotional for me. It is very hard for me to talk about this. I'm trying to not jumble this up. I'm trying to make sense, like for myself, I'm still trying to make sense of everything. So I just really can only give what is there, and I just have to trust in God and you people to make sense of what I'm saying. Okay. All right, whew, deep cleansing breath, and let's go. All right, so last time we had spoken about the pregnancy with Shiloh, who is my 4th child and my 2nd son. And now Shiloh, going back into this story, Shiloh was now 1 year old. My parents were here visiting me in Jerusalem, my father and my mom. My parents, obviously. So they had come for, I want to say, 6 or 8 weeks. They usually did that just to flee the cold winter in Germany and to just spend time with us, you know. So they were both retired, and so they could do that easily, so no problem. And we back then still had a lot of space in our home, so we could have them for a longer amount of time, and everything was fine. So they came, and I knew that around Shiloh's 1st birthday, I wanted to start the treatments for the next child. So, and that's what I did. So maybe something like 3-4 weeks before his birthday, I already started to sort of, you know, get all the papers ready and, you know, have everything on standby just in case, depending on when I get my period, and then we have to go back into treatments and all of that. So everything is set. Then I knew that my husband would have to go on a business trip to America. And that would also fall in that month. So that was February. Shiloh's birthday was February 13th. So around that time, I think a little bit later, my husband was scheduled to go to America on a business trip, which was no big deal because I knew my parents would be here and would help me with the small kids that I had, and it would be okay. Everything would be fine. So what I had forgotten to tell you in my last video, and I only noticed that while I was editing the video, that we still had a lot of frozen embryos, you know, with the last harvest in preparation for the IVF, for the last IVF that we had with Shiloh. We had something like, I don't remember the exact amount of embryos anymore. I think they had harvested something like 25 eggs. And it was actually a very scary situation because my ovaries were so packed and so overstimulated and so, you know, that they said they are so in danger of overreacting sort of and starting to twist. Sometimes that happens, that they start to twist around themselves and then sort of how do you say that? They sort of cut off their own blood supply by doing that. So I had to go to ultrasounds every single day so they could actually really monitor what is happening, if they have to reduce the medicine, whatever. So, but that was just backtracking to Shiloh, to that treatment. Okay, so and because of that, because of this very high dosage, high stimulation treatment, I had a super big result in eggs that they could harvest, and then they fertilized, I think, let's say it was 25, something like that, and then they fertilized, I think, 21 of them, and 19 or 18 survived and kept on growing. And then of course the ones that they didn't use for the pregnancy with Shiloh, they did put in the freezer or whatever it's called. So anyway, so that was just to complete this story. Okay, now back to our story from today. Okay, so we did have the eggs. I was waiting for my period to come and everything was fine. We celebrated Shiloh's first birthday. He was taking his first steps with my dad holding his hands and everything. I have very, very nice memories for that, on that, with that. And then I actually got my period and we started the treatments. So then my husband had to go to his business trip, and that was exactly in the time when I would have to have the embryo transferred to my uterus. So we are actually still joking about this, that I actually got pregnant while my husband was on the other side of the world. That is absolutely insane. So I on that day when I had to go to get the embryos, and we had already decided that we want to have 2 put in, because the chance of both of them taking on and attaching themselves to the uterine wall is not that high. I think it was back then, it was something like 36% or something. So we figured, you know, maybe we'll get one out of this, and that's going to be good. So little did we know both of them would take. But anyway, so the morning of that day, I dropped off my kids in kindergarten, my 3 oldest ones, and Shiloh was at home with my parents. And then I went to the hospital. I was going into the, how do you say that, the daycare? I don't think that's the right word, where you get admitted for the day, and then by the end of the day or like a couple of hours later you get released. So basically you're not staying overnight. So I went there, put on the hospital gown and everything, and then, you know, I guess they did another blood test and whatever, I don't remember anymore, did some paperwork. And then I remember that they told me to lie down and just relax in my bed, waiting for it to be my turn to put the embryos in. And I remember that I was calling my husband, and he was in LA at that point. So for him it was past midnight, but he had said, I want to, like, please call me when they're about to do it. So that's what I did. So we spoke on the phone and I cried and I was super emotional, and it was horrible to be alone, but there was no other way. And anyway, so we spoke about it, everything was fine. Then they like rolled me into that room, and actually I saw those 2 embryos on the screen. They showed them to me before they took a syringe and sucked them up into this thing, what they then eventually put into the uterus. And I saw them on the screen, and I even took a picture. I just couldn't find it now, otherwise I would have showed you. It was basically 2 balls of cells, you know, but it was amazing. And I already blessed the babies, you know, for me they were already my babies, you know. And yeah, so then they put them in, and of course I wasn't allowed to move, so they transferred me back to my bed and put me back into that room, my room. All right, so then I called my husband again. I told him the deed is done. Thank you very much. And yeah, and then I was just supposed to lie there for as long as I could, maybe like an hour or something, till I then had to get up and go to the bathroom. But in that hour I was just there in my bed, and I was putting my hands on my tummy, and I was just praying, and I was welcoming the babies, and I told them, I want you both, please, please, please stay, both of you stay. I don't want to make a decision which one of you I want or not. I want both of you. You're both blessed, and I want you, and no matter what, I'm going to love you, and all of that. So I was very, very emotional, and I cried, and I just, you know, I spent this, it was a very holy situation for me. Even though maybe it sounds silly for someone who is not involved in stuff like this, but for me, getting pregnant was always such a struggle and such a battle, and it's warfare for me, you know. It was never easy. Just next time. Yeah, so come back also next time for my next video in this installment in this series, because that's going to be the easy one. Anyway, so yeah, so for me it was a big sigh of relief that this whole treatment cycle was finished, and now the only thing that I could do was wait. Even though waiting is hard, it's very, very hard, but for me it was like, okay, now we wait. So so that's what we did. And then my husband came home a couple of days later. He came home from his business trip, and I don't remember anymore how many days that was. Maybe it was like 4 or 5 days or something later. And so he came home in the afternoon. We spent a nice evening together with my parents, who were still there, and they were supposed to be there still like for another month or another 3 weeks or something like that. So yeah, and then my father died. The next morning, I woke up at 5:15 in the morning. My mom came running down the stairs. She said, "I think your father just died." And she was breathing hard and she was totally panicked. And I just ran up the stairs to the guest room, and there was my dad, and he just had like, he had just died. And I'm a nurse. I was absolutely paralyzed. I could not touch him. I did not want to touch him. I couldn't take his pulse. I didn't want to touch him. I did not want to have this feeling of touching my dead father. I don't know if you can maybe relate to this, but I was like, this cannot be happening. Anyway, there was this whole trauma about him dying in my house, under my roof. Totally unexpected. Yes, he was like 84 years old, but he was not sick in that sense. He was old, but he was not sick. There was no sign of him just dying. And anyway, I've made a video about this in memory of my father. So I'm not going to go into this like in depth now, because this is really not the topic today. I'm just saying that all of this craziness came into this period of my life where I was supposed to take care of myself, where I was supposed to rest, where I was supposed to guard those potential babies. Of course, I didn't know that I was pregnant, but you know, so I spent days and days trying fighting my way through the bureaucracy and all of that to get my father's body back to Germany and all of that, because suddenly I was in charge of him, because I was in charge of my father's dead body. So I was doing all of that, and then I couldn't go to the funeral because my passport had expired and I didn't know. I was not aware of that, so I couldn't go. So my husband went, and in all of that time, and we're talking now about 1 week, okay? 1 week from my father's death. They had flown him back to Germany. My mother was back in Germany. My husband had gone. I was alone with my 4 kids. And there was one morning when I was scheduled to do a blood test. And that was the morning of my father's funeral. And so I dropped off my kids in kindergarten and took Shiloh, my 1-year-old Shiloh, and took him with me to the hospital, and I went to the fertility ward and did my blood test there, and then drove back home. And I knew that later on today would be my father's funeral, and I was all upside down and it was horrible. And anyway, so later on in the morning they called me and they told me, "Leorah, you're pregnant." And again, I asked, how high is the pregnancy hormone? And it was super high. So I knew it would be twins. I knew that both of them had taken. And from that second on, I felt like such an emotional roller coaster, because I actually felt like now I can let myself be happy, because life has gone, but life has also come. You know, there is hope, you know, and I felt so guilty about this, because I wanted to wholeheartedly mourn for my dad, but at the same moment I felt like I cannot, because I have to be happy. I have to be happy for the kids, for those babies that are growing, that are actually there and that have been given to me, and I cannot sort of poison them with all this sadness and everything. So I was so like ripped in half, because I had no idea what to do with myself. And so the funeral went ahead and everything, and I had before the funeral I called my husband and I told him to go outside, to go away from the rest of my family, and I told them that we are expecting and that I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have twins again. So he was absolutely thrilled, absolutely happy. And okay, so then he said he's not going to tell anyone now, because not right in front of before the funeral. So he went to the funeral, and then in the evening, when they were all still sitting together, I called again, and nobody knew that I had called again. My husband was hiding the phone. He just wanted me to be there while he's announcing to everybody that we're expecting. And usually we are not telling it so early on, but it just felt right at that moment, you know, that to tell everybody that there is new life coming into the family while my father's life just had ended. So he was hiding his phone on his lap, and he was saying then to everybody, you know, we have something to announce. And so I could hear them cheer, and everybody was so happy, and it turned the whole thing around, you know. It turned this whole morning, well, didn't take away from the morning, but it added a different aspect or a different dimension to the whole thing, and it was actually absolutely amazing. So I think 2 weeks later we went to our first ultrasound, and then we found out that it is definitely twins, and this time they were in two sacs with two placentas, so we knew that it's either two boys or two girls, or one boy and one girl, but not identical. And yeah, and that's that's how it was. And then again, I was bleeding, and I was so scared that I'm going to lose one of them again, and I was spending, I think, 6 weeks in bed till the pregnancy really got strong, and I could also stop taking medicine, because all of the time I was taking hormones to support the pregnancy and to trick my body into thinking that my body actually wanted this, you know, because obviously every time you do something like fertility treatments, you're forcing your body into a situation that your body doesn't want to be in, because otherwise you would be fertile, right? So anyway, so that's what I had to do till I think week 15, and then we sort of slowly how do you say that? You know, you just reduce the dosage a little bit until you are totally free and your body kicks in, and that's what we did. The bleeding stopped. I could get up. Of course, it was still a high-risk pregnancy. I also had developed a gestational, what's it called? Diabetes. Gestational? Does one say that? Like a pregnancy diabetes. And I could control it with very strict diet, which was really, really good. I didn't have to take medicine. But anyway, the pregnancy was good. But then I think at around 6 months or 7 months, maybe 6 months, I don't recall anymore. We had another ultrasound, and then we already saw that one of the babies was much smaller than the other one, and the one that was smaller also had a anomaly on the umbilical cord, so that there was less nutrition getting to that baby. So of course, again, we had to be super how do you say that? Ugh. You see, I'm just really nervous about all of this. It's like, gotta forgive me. We had to be monitored. I wanted to say monetized, but that's not the right word. Monitored. To check that the baby is growing sufficiently and everything. So yeah. So we approached the due date, and I carried them, thank God, to 36 weeks, which is pretty good for twins, and everything went okay. We went in for the C-section, and the first one, the tiny one, was Micellar, who is still tiny and petite and cute and small, and she was born with just 2 kilos. But she was a fighter from the very, very first second. Her face was so small, she disappeared. When I was nursing her, I basically couldn't see her. Like next to my breasts, it's like, where are you? You know, her mouth was so tiny, and she struggled so hard, but she was fighting. And I think she only dropped weight on the first day. And they said to me, if she drops more weight, she has to go into the what's it called? You know, for the underweight babies. I don't know the English word right now. I'm just remembering the German and the Hebrew. Sorry. Anyway, so she just dropped weight on the first day, and then she gained. And of course, they also gave her like very, very special food. In addition to me breastfeeding her, they gave her also bottled food that was really, really super rich, and you know, giving her strength, and was also not as hard to drink as from nursing. So she was gaining, and that was Micellar, and Golan was born at, I think, 2.8 kilos. So he he was almost a kilo heavier than her. And he was sitting on her basically, because she was on the bottom and he was on top. So he was the whole time pressing down on her. But these two have a relationship like you wouldn't believe. They feel each other like nobody else I've ever seen in the whole world. So they have a very, 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 very special bond going on. Anyway, so he was a very easy child, the happiest child ever, while Micellar was the whiniest child ever. She was a fighter, a feisty fighter, but very whiny, and to a certain extent she still is like that. She's getting a little bit happier now, but she had a very rough start into life. And Golan, he was the happiest child I've ever had. You only saw him smile, you only saw him happy, like he was just the happiest bouncy baby ever born. And yeah, so that was that. And I had thought that once the babies are out, I can finally mourn my dad, but it never happened. I don't know what I was thinking, that I would be able to sit down and mourn my dad properly while I have newborn twin kids and another another four kids in addition to that. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway, so I never feel like I did really mourn my dad, and I'm starting to believe that he's actually okay with that. You know, I don't think he minds that. I still miss him and I love him, but you know, as the time has gone by, I see the blessing that was in that happened to him, that he could go like this in his sleep and without being sick, without suffering. I think this is the greatest blessing, that at age 84, with everything settled in your life, God just takes you and brings you home, you know. So I thought that was amazing, and till today I'm super thankful, even though it was super dramatic back then. Yeah, so we also called then Golan, and his second name, his name is Shalom, which means my father is peace, or my father has peace. So we called him after my dad. And also in addition to that, it was just very comforting for me to give this, that, or to make it public that my father has peace now, you know. So that was a very, very important thing for my husband and for myself after all this trauma and all this. So yeah, so that was that. my second twin pregnancy. And yeah, and next time we're gonna go into the pregnancy of my only child that we conceived naturally, supernaturally. And yeah, so that is that. So I hope you did enjoy this. I have no idea if I told you everything. Maybe I'm going to have to again in the next video tell you something that I forgot this time, because really this is super hard. I just have to point it out again, that my heart is beating like here, right here, and actually right now I have no idea what I was talking about. It's super hard, but I do believe that this is really something that is helping other people. Me talking about this, even though that it is, you know, not very organized and not very polished, you know. Actually, my mom is visiting right now while I'm filming this, and right before I came down here to film, she said, you don't mind to talk about this? And I said, Mom, for me, this whole thing in my life of me being infertile, of me not being able to give birth naturally, that this whole segment of my life is artificial and is not, it just never felt right. It made me feel like I'm not a woman. It made me feel second grade at best. And the only thing where I can see sense in this is that I have to sit here and talk about it, you know. So so that is that, and I really hope that it is helpful. So that was a big story time. I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you think. And then please come back next time for my next video in this series, or for all my other videos, obviously. And if you like this, then please give the video a like. Leave me your comments, of course, as I just said. And if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. I would so love that. And yeah, and all of the information about my makeup and everything you find in the description box, as always. And I'll see you here next time for my next video. I have nothing left to say. I love you, and I thank you for watching, and up until next time, hugs and kisses. Bye.